What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been.
Silence can actually be a teacher. It forces us to confront the question, who am I when no one is clapping? When I don't receive approval and affirmation, who am I really? And why am I really doing this? Can I still stand in truth if not one person affirms me? And when you can answer those questions with courage, you become the kind of leader who doesn't just survive silence, but you're shaped by it. Welcome back to The Leadership Wound. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm Amanda Rohr, the founder of Authentically You Coaching for spiritually embodied living and leading. And we're in the middle of a series called The Validation Trap. Last time in part 1, we focused on awareness, pulling back the curtain to see just how external validation quietly drives our leadership decisions. Today, we're moving into the next step of that journey, impact. Because until we understand what validation seeking is actually costing us, we'll keep living in it without even questioning the price. And the truth is, the price is pretty steep. Let's start here. Acknowledgment feels good. Let's just admit it. The smile across the table when you share an idea, the nodding of heads in a meeting, the quick text that says, "That was so helpful and meaningful to me today," or the email that lands in your inbox with a simple, "Great job." The applause after you've poured yourself out feels great. It's moments like these that feel amazing because they tell us, I see you, I value you, what you brought mattered and made a difference. And here's the deeper truth. These are all external signs. They're the ways we often measure our worthiness, our approval, our sense of, I'm doing okay today. And when those signals show up, they can feel like fuel. And it's universal. Every single one of us has been trained to look outside of ourselves for those cues, to tell us we're on the right path, that what we're doing is good, that our work is valuable and profitable. From childhood on, we've been conditioned to check the faces around us, the words spoken to us, the metrics that are handed back to us, to decide whether we're enough and whether we're doing the right thing. But when that acknowledgement doesn't come, when we're met with silence or rejection, when the response you were hoping for just doesn't arrive, the absence can feel like rejection, or worse, like invisibility. And invisibility may be one of the hardest things a leader can feel. Because at the root of every human heart is the longing to be seen, known, and valued. When silence answers our efforts, it cuts us deep. For many leaders, that silence doesn't just sting, it begins to shape our entire leadership posture. Last episode, we talked about how dopamine and the reward hit of approval. But today, we're going to shift our lens. Scientists studying human connection talk about something called mirror neurons. It's the parts of our brains that fire when we experience empathy, resonance, or a relational connection with others. These are the same neurons that light up when someone smiles at us or nods while we're speaking. They signal to us, I see you, you matter. And when that mirroring doesn't happen, when those faces stay blank, when the emails go unanswered or the room stays quiet, those same neural circuits interpret it as a disconnection. And disconnection triggers stress. Psychologists also point to what's called the social baseline theory. Our brains expect connection. They desire connection. They assume others are present, holding part of the load for us. And when that sense of others with us disappears, our bodies read it as an added threat. The work feels heavier then. The risk feels greater, and the silence feels unsafe. That's why silence in leadership isn't just neutral, it costs us something. Early in my leadership journey, I often withdrew. I didn't show up fully as myself. I can remember moments when I had ideas, strong ones, but instead of sharing them with boldness, I stayed quiet. I overthought every word, worried about how people might perceive me. I was afraid of being too much, too intense, too opinionated, or just plain wrong. And if I'm honest, those triggers still come up to me at times. There were also times when I saw something happening that didn't sit right with me, things that I felt like I wanted to call out and speak up against. But instead of standing in my convictions, I held back because deep down I was worried about the fallout. Would people pull away from me? Would they think less of me? Would I lose approval? And so I shrank. I held back my gifts. I kept the fullness of who I was under wraps. And here's what I eventually realized. When we're looking to the response of others to validate our actions or our train of thought, what we're really doing is leading from performance. Performance-based leadership doesn't always look like the big stage or having the perfect image. Sometimes it's as subtle as sitting in a meeting, sharing something vulnerable, and then immediately scanning the room. Did that land? Did they get it? Why is no one responding? When no one gives you the smile, the nod, the affirmation, the quick text or email back, when you're met with blank stares and a blank screen or just silence, your brain starts scrambling. Was I wrong? Should I take it back? Did I lose them? Did I offend them? That's not authentic leadership. That's performance. And I know this because I lived it. I sat across from people who simply didn't know how to engage with me. And instead of resting in the truth of what I was bringing to the table, I bent myself over backwards and into knots, trying to interpret their silence, trying to make it mean that it was my fault, that I did something wrong, that this was about me. And in those moments, I wasn't leading from my authentic self. I was letting external validation drive how I moved and how I led. And that cycle, it's exhausting because no matter what you do, the silence will always come. And if your worth is tethered to the applause or response of others or the lack thereof it, you're really not free. What began to shift for me was when someone painted a different picture. They looked at me in the eye and said, "You don't have to be afraid of what people think. You don't have to base your worth or if you did the right thing based on someone's response. You don't have to hold back your voice. What's on the other side of fear of others and their perception of you is freedom. Freedom to lead authentically, not perfectly, but truly to who God created you to be." And that was the turning point. There was an alternate way to live. It didn't erase the fear overnight, and sometimes I still have triggers that come up, but it gave me a new, fresh vision, an alternative to what I was experiencing. One where my leadership, my living and leading wasn't defined by performance, by the response or validation of others, but anchored in the truth of God and how He had wired me. Now let's move to talking about the impact of living for external validation. Let's name it clearly. What does it cost us when we live for the applause and crumble at the silence when it comes? It's exhaustion. You never arrive. You just work harder, perform more, and yet it's never enough. It's a treadmill that just keeps speeding up. So many leaders I talk to are burnt out because they're not living and leading authentically, but just waiting for the next approval from someone else. It shows up as distortion. Your decisions bend. You start asking, what will people like? Instead of what's true, what's the right thing to do. You trade integrity for approval. The impact is isolation. You feel alone in the crowd because internally you know what the right thing is to do, but you're so trained to externally look for validation. Because if people only value the performance, you never know if they still value you if you stop performing. It also shows up with anxiety and overthinking. You replay conversations in your head, wondering how you came across. You check your phone 10 times for the email that just never comes, or the text that they don't respond to. You become hypervigilant, waiting for affirmation. And lastly, it's the loss of joy. Maybe the deepest cost of all. When your worth depends on validation, the joy of simply doing the work that you're called to do gets swallowed up by the pressure and fear. And the heartbreaking part, most of us don't even realize we're paying this price until the burnout hits. For leaders, this isn't just personal, it's contagious. When you lead from applause and the approval and affirmation of others, your team and those that you live with learn to do the same. They overwork. They silence themselves. They measure their worth by how you respond to them. But when you lead from presence, from that inner anchor, from looking internally for your validation instead of the rise and fall of the noise of the crowd, that stability gives others permission to do the same. That's why this isn't just about your growth. It's about the kind of culture that you're creating in your home, in your teams, in your workplace. Here's the hope though. Silence can actually be a teacher. It forces us to confront the question, who am I when no one is clapping? When I don't receive approval and affirmation, who am I really? And why am I really doing this? Can I still stand in truth if not one person affirms me? And when you can answer those questions with courage, you become the kind of leader who doesn't just survive silence, but you're shaped by it. And people take notice to that. Here's something that you can try this week. I call it the impact awareness practice. The first step is to notice. When silence is there and it is stinging, it's an invitation to pause. Don't just rush past it. Feel the sting. Give yourself permission to feel the pain. Don't dismiss it. And then name the cost. Ask yourself, what is this silence costing me? What am I making it mean? Is it costing me my energy, my clarity, my joy? And then lastly, redirect what that silence means. Anchor in truth. My worth is not measured by the applause or the absence of it. I'm called. I'm enough. I can stand here without validation. I believe enough in myself and the choices that I'm making to stand alone and stand with God. Over time, this retrains our nervous system to respond differently to what people say or what they don't say, to what people do or what they don't do. Notice, name the cost, and then redirect. But here's the truth. Breaking free from the validation trap isn't a quick fix. You can listen to all the podcasts you want, read all the leadership books, and try all kinds of new practices. But when the silence comes, and it will, or the rejection, those old thought patterns have a way of sneaking back in if we have not dealt with them. That's why I created one of my signature coaching packages called The Way of Metanoia. I walk leaders through a simple but powerful rhythm of pause, return, and embody to help you shift your thought life and anchor in truth. And in the Leadership Wound Healing Path, another signature coaching package, we dig into the pain of past leadership wounds so you can stop carrying them into the future. Because here's what I know, you cannot live freely while being chained to the applause or approval of others. But you can build a new way forward of living and leading, one that's rooted in clarity, courage, and authenticity. And so here's my invitation to you today. If you find yourself exhausted from chasing validation, from looking externally for approval and affirmation, if you're tired of overthinking what everyone else thinks rather than just focusing on what you think, if silence still feels like failure instead of an invitation to freedom, then it's time to stop doing this alone. I want you to schedule a free 30-minute growth plan consult with me. In that call, we'll name what this trap is costing you, the hidden cost, and clarify what's really at stake and begin crafting a personalized plan to move you forward into freedom and visibility for your authentic self. Staying stuck in the cycle of the validation trap will keep costing you more. It'll cost you your peace, your influence, your relationships, and your joy. But stepping into authentic leadership will give you back what matters most: your freedom, your voice, your clarity, your confidence, and most importantly, your peace and joy. It's time to stop hiding your true self behind the mask of seeking validation outside of yourself. Come out of hiding. Step into the freedom of leading authentically. If you felt like something was stirring within you as you listen to this podcast, don't wait until burnout forces you to do it. Stop, pause, and get on a call with me. The cost is just too high. And if this podcast resonated with you, share it with someone else who needs to come out of hiding as well. Thanks for tuning in to The Leadership Wound. This work is worth doing, and I'm honored to walk with you. See you next time, and until then, lead like you.